Hello, today I want us to look at 3D printing. Okay, 3D printing is also known as additive manufacturing. It is a method of creating three-dimensional objects layer by layer using a computer-created design or computer aided design. So this kind of 3D printing is 3D printing where an object is created by use of different material, laying up layers that would eventually form a 3D object in reality. So 3D printing is additive process where the layers of materials are built up to create a 3D part. Now this is the opposite of subtractive manufacturing process, where you start with main object, then you remove the parts that you don't need, and you are left with a cut from main object. So that is the main difference between subtractive manufacturing process and additive manufacturing process. Now we need to look at and understand how 3D printing works. So 3D starts with a 3D model that can opt to create one from you can opt to create one from the ground or download an object from a 3D library. But in all this, you need a 3D software which you must be able to use in the process of coming up with a 3D object. Now, how does this thing work? So there are various types of 3D softwares that are available today. Some of them are open source. Their underlying codes are free and can be modified, so they are there in the market space for free, so we can get them and make use of them in our process of coming up with a 3D printed object. Now there are many different softwares tools available today for, and that's so great to open source, right? For those who are starting out, there is what we call Tinkercad, which is normally recommended. It is free and works in a browser like Firefox or even Chrome, so you don't have to install it into your computer. Now Tinker offers beginners lesson and has built-in features to export your models as printable file with the extension .stl or .object or .obj. You see, so that is those are some of the extensions that printable or exported model must have or will have when you are using the software to import them and make use of them in your process of 3D printing. Now that you have a printable file, so you need to do what is called slicing. So slicing is done from printable file to 3D. So slicing basically means slicing up your 3D model into hundreds of thousands of layers, and is done using a slicing software. So apart from a software that you can use to come up with the printable file, you also need a second software that can assist you or help you do what we call slicing. Now slicing, as it were or as it is the process of dividing or slicing into pieces your model into thousands of layers using a slicing software. So when your file is sliced, it is ready for 3D printing. So feeding the file to the printer can be done using USB, SD, or Wi-Fi. Your sliced file is now ready to be printed layer by layer. So that is very critical. Now we also need to look at what are some of the materials that one would need in the process of coming up with a 3D object. Now there are a variety of 3D materials, including thermoplastic, such as acrylonitrile, butynes, styrene, or simply ABS. Then we also have metals, including powder, resins, and ceramic. So those are some of the materials that can be used in 3D printing. Now we also need to venture a bit into the history of 3D printing. Where did it start? Where is it coming from? Where is it going? Because generally it is always good to understand the history of something so that you are well aware and be able to appreciate the process, the work that has been put in, the kind of ideas and knowledge that have been put in, so that one is able to relate and understand better the item in question. So like our item in question in this case is 3D printing. So we need to understand where did it originate, or where did it come from. So the earliest 3D printing manufacturing was developed by Hideo Kodama of Nayoga Municipal Industrial Research Institute, when he invented the two additive method of fabricating 3D models. So that is the origin. Now, when was it invented? Now, building on Ralph Baker's work, which was done around 1920s for making decorative articles. Hideo Kodama early work in laser cured resin rapid prototyping was complete in 1981. So his invention was expanded upon over the next 3 decades with the introduction of stereolithography in 1984, and also Chuck Hill of 3D Systems invented the first 3D printer in 1987. So these are some of the groundbreaking inventions as far as 3D printing is concerned. So so this 3D printer by Chuck Hull, or in 1987, used the stereolithography process. So this was followed by development such as selective laser sintering and selective laser melting, among others. So those are that is how the history has been. But technically, the field, or the whole idea of 3D printing has been taking shape in many areas and in many aspects, and so it is very critical for us as people who are interested in technology to look at this technology with keen interest of how it is spans out, how it is coming about, and how it is going. Now, there are 3 broad types of 3D printing technology. We have sintering, we have melting, and we also have stereolithography, right? So those are some of the printing technologies that are there. So we need to understand what are these, what is sintering, what is melting, what is stereolithography. Now, when talking of sintering, it is a technology where the material is heated but not to the point of melting to create high resolution items. So molten or metal powder is used for direct metal laser sintering, while thermoplastic powders are used for selective laser sintering. So we have metal power being used in direct metal laser sintering, and we also have thermoplastic powders being used in selective laser sintering. So generally, sintering is a technology that allows the object or the material that is being used to come up with the 3D objects is heated, but not to an extent where it is able to melt, but to a certain level, and then that materials is manipulated in coming up with a 3D object. Then we also have the melting method of 3D printing, which include power bed fusions, electrobeam melting, and direct energy deposition. This uses laser, electric arcs, or electron beams to print objects by melting the material together at high temperature. So in melting, the material is heated at high temperature to an extent where it is able to melt. Once it is in molten form, it can be manipulated by coming up with the layer of the layers of the 3D printing. We also have stereolithography utilities or utilizes photopolymerization to create patterns or parts. So this technology uses the correct light source to interact with the material in selective area to cure and solidify a cross section of object in thin layers. So 3D process. Now there are types of 3D printing. Okay, there are so many of them. As you can see, 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing process, have been categorized into 7 groups by ISO ASTM 52900 additive manufacturing general purpose principle technology. All forms of 3D printing fall into one of the following types. We have binder jettering, direct energy deposition, material extraction, and material jettering, power bed fusion. Then we also have sheet lamination, and lastly we have VAT polymerization. So these are the types of 3D printing. I hope this video has been able to inform you and to enlighten you. So if you are joining me for the first time, please remember to subscribe and like for updates anytime they are available. Thank you.